If you would, join me in prayer, please. Father, we thank you for the opportunity to come together again to do the business of the county. We pray for guidance, Father, that the decisions that are made would be in the best interest of the people of Gilmer County. We thank you for the opportunity to live in such a beautiful place with the freedoms that we have. And we thank you for those who guarantee those freedoms and ask your blessing upon them. These things we ask in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Are there any changes to the agenda? If not, I would make a motion that the agenda be accepted. Second. All in favor? Aye. Which brings us to the first item, the discussion and possible action on the airport improvement grant. Jim?
Thank you, Charlie. Gentlemen, if just to refresh your memory, and I don't know what order Sandy gave you these documents, but I'd like to first talk from this letter that we discussed at your last meeting, which is what's called a tentative offer letter concerning grant at the airport. So if you would pull this letter out first.
They should all be good.
Okay. And what you will notice there is the allocation of the local funds required for a grant or grants of the magnitude that they're proposing there is the local allocation would be $249,798.99. And what they say in the first sentence, or the sentence immediately after the table there, is to please confirm no later than December the 6th your intent to proceed with and fund this project in the state's fiscal year 2019, which ends June 30th, 2019. Now, what you did is you deferred action on it to give us a chance with the chairman to go back and come up with a counter proposal to their proposal for the grant. And that is this letter. This is a draft letter that is giving different alternatives to the way that the FAA and GDOT want to fund the land acquisition and phase 3 of the runway safety area. And what it does is, I guess in a nutshell, is that it drops the local share from $249,000 to about $81,000, of which $27,000 we already have allocated in the 2019 budget. So the action that we would need tonight from the commission is to authorize the chairman to sign this letter, and we would send it next day delivery to the mail tomorrow. And I'll be happy to answer any questions that you might have concerning this. To refresh your memory, the runway safety project, we have finished the first 2 phases of it. And phase 3 is scheduled to finish the rest of it. However, we bid the project back 60 days ago, and because there was not bar area or land or dirt in close proximity to the airport, the low bid for the runway safety project was $2.4 million. What we're proposing is that we acquire property immediately adjacent to the airport, and we have a willing seller to sell property, and with that acquisition, we would have the dirt on airport property to finish the runway safety project, and we would have an additional 25 acres of land as well.
Would that additional property help us with any of the other runway extensions or so forth?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Good question, Travis. What that would do is give us the land to do an airport turnaround, as well as to extend the runway on the south end up to our first extension would be 700 feet. We would go from 3,500 to 4,200, and then the next extension would be out 5,000. And that land that we're proposing that they assist us in buying is where that extension, where all of those improvements will be made.
When you say there's a willing buyer, is the price been determined?
Yes, sir.
Jim, have we done any soil samples out there?
You know, well, that's another good question. What we had to do when we were using a private bar area, we had to do all kinds of soil testing on that. But if this land is acquired, it is a part of the airport, and you don't have to do the soil testing that is required if you're borrowing off of private land, as you would if you were using soil off of the airport.
Is that true for where we need to put airplanes and runways, or just where we fill?
Yeah, Dallas, if you'll remember, sir, now you're one that will remember, when we expanded the apron that we have out there today, and the land where those two hangars are, we pulled that dirt off of the airport property, which is immediately to your left as you drive in. That used to be a hill there, and we actually pulled that dirt and moved it down and expanded the ramp. We didn't have to do anything except compaction tests, which you always have to do. But we didn't have to do any soils testing or anything because it was a part of our property.
The only reason it came to my mind was, as an example, the roundabout that's being made does have some requirements for weight support and things, which I thought also applied to runways.
Well, it will. But now the safety project that we're doing, Dallas, is not the runway itself. The safety project is actually filled.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah. Phil, I understand.
Exactly.
Yeah, I don't want to, that's good, and I'm okay with that, because I just don't want to have a problem when we start extending the runway and find out we got.
No, those are all good questions, because we have to, our runway has to be rated to a certain weight limit.
Right.
But that would come at the point where we were extending a runway. It would not come with phase 3 of runway safety.
I'm good with that.
We're basically filling ditches and holes.
One thing too that I would mention is that this does require us to allocate an extra $53,000 over and above what has been budgeted for 2019. But it'll get us about a $2 million project. What I would recommend though is that we not worry about allocating that money right now. because we don't know that they're going to accept this offer. This is just a counter offer that we're making, and if they should accept it, that'd be a good thing for us. And at that time, we can do a budget amendment to allocate the additional money with the knowledge that everything's already approved and we're ready to go. But I wouldn't recommend that we even through with that right now.
That would be my recommendation too, Mr. Chairman. And one of the things that I want to point out to you, even with this letter, you're still not committed completely. You're not committed until they present you with a contract to be signed. This is simply a counter proposal to their proposal.
Are there any other questions on the letter, or objections or concerns?
Would you entertain a motion to execute the letter and send it as a counter proposal? That might not inform me much.
I would second that, Charlie.
Is there any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, Jim.
Sandy, be sure to get his
Is this the letter that I signed?
She had the original.
The original, okay. All right. That is going to bring us to discussion and possible action on advisory board membership policy. We talked about some guidelines at our last meeting, and Dallas has given us a little bit easier to read list here before we head forward. There are two things that I would mention in that. The first is where it says a member must have term limits. And we discussed this a little bit at the last meeting. That's really intended to say not so much term limits, but that there will be a specific term that they would serve, 3 years or whatever it is. And so I would suggest that be reworded to say that a member would serve, I'm going to say a 3-year term.
I should have reworded that one. Well, I retyped that or redid it, but I didn't, so I'm in agreement with that, Charlie.
Okay. The only other thing on here that I'm concerned about is the last one. Board members may take part in their respective department as a volunteer, only with no supervisory role. I'm fine with that, except that I'm wondering if the board member is a coach. That's not a supervisory role, but it is making, so to speak, command decisions about how things will be done out there. Doesn't mean I'm automatically opposed to it, but I see that as a bit of a conflict of what we're trying to do. If we say that the board members can be a coach, but they can't do anything else. It's a supervisory role.
Right. I'm not sure. I don't have a good word smithing to fix that either, but I agree that that is an open question, Charlie. Our intent, I think, was to let those on the advisory boards be volunteers and active in the particular department that their board covers. So that was the intent. But I don't know how to word that. Maybe David, you've got an idea, or Travis.
What did you have in mind for the term supervisory role? What is that?
Well, the wording I used there, I didn't know what else to use, was that they could participate as volunteers and be involved in the activities, but not making managerial decisions of any kind.
Is that her, though? I wouldn't think you would allow a non-county employee to make managerial decisions.
But if they're, as an example, Charlie mentions, if they're a coach, they're going to be making decisions about their team or their schedules or their who gets this field for that day or hour or other decisions. I don't know whether we consider those management or supervisory decisions.
I would consider that, I don't know, the management or supervisory would apply as a title, but or as a term, but the function I think is there if you're a coach.
Yeah.
My feeling would be that if you're a board member, that you should not be a coach.
I mean, that is an option.
I'm trying to think.
You've got a lot of team things. You've got things that we deal with: football, soccer, swimming. We got a lot of team stuff involved. I don't know whether that works or not.
Well, we keep talking about park and rec examples, but this document.
It would apply to any advisory board.
So,
but
expand our thought.
The example that seems to work well is how we're doing with our Keep Gilmer Beautiful, where they're active, and yet they're still participating in the cleanup days and so on, and working with Earth Day and all of those things. So I don't know how to characterize it.
Well, your point is exactly correct, that this would apply to all boards.
You know, I think that would make sense.
The Parks and Rec with the coach situation is the only one that I can think of where I believe this would be problematic. The idea of having coaches that essentially make the decisions for how their teams operate is sort of unique to Parks and Rec. I don't think there's an equivalent for any of the other boards.
I agree. Well, what are you trying to accomplish? And then we can work. I'm still not exactly clear who you're excluding.
Well, the only thing that was intended in my mind was that we did not want volunteers performing duties that really were part of the government staff functions for any of the departments, I think is our general intent.
But is that not covered by number 15?
Well, that probably excludes coaches. If you use just number 15, it almost eliminates volunteer activities. If you just look at board members cannot participate in any daily operations, that pretty much wipes out a volunteer.
It does, because a lot of the volunteers do things like mowing and leveling fields or scraping the fields, that sort of thing. 15 would eliminate that.
Yeah, I think it would.
16 would actually allow that because they're just out there doing a specific function. They're not supervising anybody else.
Yeah.
But with 16 comes the issue of what to do about coaches. I do think we need to pick between 15 and 16 and just have one or the other.
Yeah,
Yeah.
The person that's sitting on my board and that also works under me, it's actually been a benefit for him to be there and see what happens on the day-to-day operations there at the park, because the majority of people don't know, the majority of people that sits on that advisory board don't know how that particular department works. So whenever that particular person come on staff, it was actually like an eye-opening experience for him, because he got to see how things worked there in our department, and then he was going to be able to take it back to the other members. So in a sense, it did benefit. It benefited my department because, you know, most people don't realize just how hectic that place is. I mean, Jim will testify to that. When he was over it, I mean, you really don't realize just how much goes on now. And by that person being in that day-to-day mix, it was eye-opening for him, and he even said that himself. So that might help you decide on that 15 or 16 minute for
Well, that would be pretty much eliminated by number 3, though. Member cannot be a county employee.
But certainly could attend a meeting or no?
Oh, anybody can.
Oh, yeah, that's an open,
You can accomplish,
those are open meetings.
you can accomplish what you just spoke of by just attending the meeting and see what.
Yeah, that can take place also.
Actually, my notes from the last meeting said that there would be meetings with minutes will be provided to liaisons who will be county employees and will also attend all meetings. Liaisons will also report to the board the activities of the advisory board. I don't see that on Dallas's revision here.
We did talk about the liaison being part of that, unless I forgot it. It talks about the meeting minutes shall be written and provided to the Board of Commissioners. Does not give the detail of the liaison, though. You're right.
So the incorporation of the liaison is actually beneficial to y'all because it keeps the county employee in attendance at the advisory board that can then subsequently come back and report to y'all.
So we could add a provision there allowing for a liaison between the board and the department. Stipulation that they could not be a voting board member.
Yeah, it's sort of the role Jim plays out at the airport as the liaison for the airport advisory board.
You know, I can just say that in my experience with the Parks and Recreation Board, and I spent 4 years with them, I couldn't have asked for a better board to work with, and almost every one of those board members were coaches or had some kind of other interest other than serving as a board member. I have to agree with Kevin. I mean, I think that when a board member gets down and dirty and gets in, you know, and sees the operation and things like that, they develop a better appreciation for what the staff and you as a Board of Commissioners is trying to do. I mean, we had girls softball coaches, we had baseball coaches, our chairman was a football coach. I mean, I could go on and on. And I think we had 7. We had a 7-member board.
We had high school coaches too.
David, you as a county attorney even were involved in a couple of situations that we had there with that advisory board. So, I think I don't want you to shut the advisory boards out of the day-to-day operation, so to speak. I think the more they know about what that operation entails, the better they appreciate it.
What I would recommend is that we drop number 15 completely. That's where board members shall not take part in any daily operations of their respective department. We leave number 16. Board members may take part in their respective departments as a volunteer, only with no supervisory role. That we leave that as is and allow the members to be coaches. And if that becomes a problem going forward, then we can address that. And that we also then add the stipulation for a liaison that will not be a voting member of the board. And I believe with those provisions, along with what you've already got here, that would work out pretty well.
Do votes occur in these boards regularly?
Every meeting, depending on what the agenda item was or anything else. Now, I haven't been to one, Travis, in years, but I can tell you from the years that I was involved, we had an agenda that the board worked from, and there was votes. Most of the votes were advisory in nature, but sometimes now we had situations where they were actually votes of punishment, you know.
And does that go beyond Park and Rec? I mean, the Airport Advisory Board, are there votes?
Oh, yeah, they vote. Yeah. They're voting usually to make a recommendation to you.
Yes.
Yeah.
One of
That's
the
where everyone stands on that issue. Got it.
Right.
Yeah.
One of the things about those votes, and it's a question that came up at the last Park and Rec board meeting I attended, first and last, I guess. I normally don't attend those because I think it's counterproductive for me to be sitting there while they're trying to figure out what to recommend. But on this particular one, I was asked to attend. One of the questions that came up was in terms of an even numbered board, and the question was, what if there's a tie in the vote? And my feeling on that was, so what? These are votes that are taken to make a recommendation to us. If you're evenly split on that, then what I would like to see is simply the argument on both sides, because the decision is ultimately going to be made here and not there. So it doesn't really matter in my mind who wins a particular vote. It's what the argument is for that specific vote.
I agree with that, Charlie, and in fact the minutes ought to reflect both the majority and the minority opinion so that we have a better feel for what's being weighed back and forth. So I agree with that.
Well, I think from a parliamentary standpoint, though, an odd number, whether it be 5, 7, 3, or whatever, is always better in settling that. Now, you all, some of you see our minutes.
I would agree with that, and that it wasn't my point to say we need an even number, only to say that who cares if it's a tie vote, because it's just a recommendation, and we want to know both sides.
And that's only relevant if there's 100% attendance anyway.
That is exactly right. I mean, if you've got members that are absent, then you're very welcome to have time. Yes, yeah, absolutely.
But let's suppose it's 4-1. I still like to hear that one side. Well,
yeah, and we don't have anything here that dictates the number of members that I'm aware of. I think each board has, they have the freedom to choose that.
That's in the resolution.
Yeah.
That creates some more.
Yeah.
Item 10 is essentially adding bylaws, or not bylaws, but, oh, okay, I misread, never mind.
What I would like to do then at this point, if there's no other suggestions here, are y'all okay with dropping 15 and adding the liaison? Okay. Then what I would like to do, for the benefit of the folks here, because we're just sitting here talking about number 1, number 5, number 8, they have no idea. I'd like to very quickly read these into the minutes so people can know what we're talking about. Number 1 is members shall be appointed by the Board of Commissioners. 2, members cannot be a county department head. 3, member cannot be a county employee. 4, member must be a resident of Gilmer County. 5, member must serve a specific term. 6, members can be reappointed. 7, members shall not miss a majority of meetings in a year to remain on the board. 8, attendance shall be taken at each meeting. 9, chair shall be elected or re-elected each year by the advisory board. 10, board shall have bylaws, and those bylaws shall be approved by the Board of Commissioners. 11, board shall keep written minutes of all proceedings, shall be approved by the advisory board, and shall be maintained as public records. 12, board shall report all proceedings in writing to the Board of Commissioners within 30 days of any meeting. 13, all meetings shall be open to the public and duly advertised in accordance with the public meeting law. 14, board recommendations shall be presented to the Board of Commissioners in writing. And 15, that I suggested that we delete, board members shall not take part in any daily operations of their respective department. And that is mitigated by 16, which said board members may take part in their respective department as a volunteer, only with no supervisory role. And then the one that we're adding to this would be the creation of a liaison that would report, well, be a liaison between the management of the department and the board. And would not have any board membership, voting membership.
And can that be accounted for, that liaison?
In fact, I think it should be.
Yeah, I don't see a
I
problem.
think you should probably specify that since you've eliminated.
David, do you have, I think I have that in the old notes we had last time and I didn't copy them.
What I have, Dallas, is minutes will be provided to liaisons who will be county employees and will also attend all
Yeah.
meetings.
Yeah.
Liaisons will report to the board the activities of the advisory board.
Yeah.
Would they report to the board or report to the management of the department?
Well, I think.
I mean, ultimately, we wanted to get to the board, but where the liaison part comes in to me is between, for instance, Kevin and the department.
I probably possibly have a report to vote.
Well, we could have a report to the board, but in other words, they wouldn't take instructions necessarily from the management, but still, the liaison part would be between the management and the board. I don't think we need a liaison between the board and the two boards. That's just going to be their written recommendations and so forth. We'll get all that. So this is what Kevin's talking about in terms of having somebody there that's familiar with the operation, a county employee that does the work, that could relay back and forth to the board.
Well, I would hope that that would simply be an understanding of the liaison's responsibilities, is to take back the minutes of the meeting and everything else to his respective department, his or her respective department. The challenge will be is seeing that is carried forward further to y'all, and I think that's when you need to impose that responsibility on you.
Okay.
Because if I had an employee in my department that was serving as a liaison and they weren't reporting to me the activities and conduct of the meeting itself, I'd be really questionable if they were a team player.
I just don't want to word it such that we're kind of prohibiting that.
No, I don't think you'd be prohibiting it. I think what you need to simply be saying is that a liaison, and I use Jim Smith as a,
Let the director be the liaison, and then you solve the problem.
and that can happen.
No.
No.
That, that person is that's the communicator. He's going to be communicating with the Board of Commissioners, and he's going to be communicating with the advisory board. I mean, Charlie, that's basically the way I function with the two that I deal with.
I think there's an inherent, I don't want to say distrust, but reservation between board members and the director.
Really?
Well, like in Jim's situation, how many employees are out at the airport?
We have 2.
So, and if I'm understanding you correctly, you'd be eliminating Jim as the potential liaison since he's the airport department.
I am good.
Well, no, that's not necessarily true. We're not saying the liaison is a member of the board. We're saying the members of the board cannot be a department head. That does not say that they cannot be. They cannot be. That's up to us.
I think David is referencing my little half grown there when he said department head.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm not wild about the idea, but
I would personally like to.
KGB, I'm the liaison there. Airport Advisory Board, I'm the liaison there.
Mike, who is the liaison for the golf course advisory?
Pretty much the same way it is,
Yeah.
and that's the way I run mine.
That's the way that keeps lines of communication open.
Well, we got that without calling the liaison. What department head is not right in there with the board?
It's the second, we got a secretary that emails you guys.
Yeah.
Why do I need to come and tell you the same thing I do myself?
Well, this is one of those things that I don't care enough to argue about. So, whatever y'all want to do is fine with me. No. But with those provisions, are y'all okay with that?
I am. In response to Kevin's comment, that liaison should be probably an employee that has an interest in that department or works in that department. It wouldn't be nice to have Jim Smith solving or being a liaison for Mike up at the golf course. But that's kind of understood.
Yeah. But, yeah,
I mean, I would want somebody on my board who's at the golf course, sees the golf course every day, plays it.
Yeah.
That way they can come in and
Yeah.
meet. It all might not be good,
Yeah.
you know, but I want the truth. I want what's good and what's bad. I don't need somebody from the park who never comes up there and plays. It wouldn't help me bit. I'd be in good shoes right now.
But being on the golf course every day and seeing it and fostering an opinion of what needs to be corrected versus knowing what's going on behind the scenes and why this is the way it is, you know, that's just two totally separate things.
Yeah.
Okay, well,
But I'm good with what you chose to change and do with what we have right now. We may need to change it later on. Is it?
we can change it. This is going to be a resolution. We can change it
Right.
anytime we want to.
Right. Right.
Okay, so do we want to go ahead and approve this now? As mentioned?
I'll make the motion that we approve this resolution and as modified, as you mentioned in your two lines that I think we changed.
Can we read what a liaison is and who can be a liaison? Read that again.
My notes with respect to the responsibilities of the liaison minutes will be provided to liaisons who will be county employees and will also attend all meetings. Liaisons will report to the board the activities of the advisory board.
Does that sound right? But you were saying not to report to the board.
That'd be my preference, but it didn't go over very well. And it's not important enough for me to argue about it.
I thought the whole point was to report to the board first. I thought that's where we were going with the
No, I see, and I thought the whole point was to foster communication between the board and the department head. The whole point of the board is its entire existence is to report to this board.
Right.
I don't think we need a liaison for that. That's their whole function in life. But I thought the liaison was to foster communication between the department head and the board members.
I look at it more as a communication between this board and that board,
That's what I'm
not the department. The department head ought to be there with that advisory board every time they meet, if possible. And if there's something going on, you know, it ought to be reported back to this board because they are advisory to you.
You know, Jim, last time I went fishing, I felt like I ought to be throwing a purple worm. My fishing buddy I've been fishing with for the last 39 years felt very much so that it needed to be a blue worm. He was adamant about it. You know why I threw a blue worm? Because I didn't care. I'm not going to argue this point.
And fish are colorblind, so.
I'm just saying, guys, that the way I look upon advisory boards, whatever it is, they're associated with a department or a department head, and that department head ought to be there. Now,
I agree with that. I don't disagree with
If
it.
you want to have another liaison, but really they're looking to that department head, and then you, Mr. Chairman, you're looking to that department head. So I don't see how they can, how an advisory board can function without the department head.
You know what? I'm going to adopt that as my passionate position.
I'm sorry, I'll shut up.
Okay.
So one more question, liaison could be a department head or no?
Yes.
Okay.
There you go.
And I'm okay with that.
All right. Any further discussion on that? Oh, did you second it?
Has it been first?
I
Been first.
It's been first, so I'll second.
All right. Any other discussion on it? All in favor? Aye. Now, the last thing I want to discuss the Parks and Rec Board. The one meeting that I attended, it appeared to be very much in disarray. I understand that some of the board members feel that that is not accurate, and might have been accurate for that meeting, but that's not the norm, and it very well may not be the norm, because that's the only one I've been to in a very long time. I want to say that I'm perfectly happy with every person that serves on the Park and Rec Board. I don't have a problem with any one of them. What I have a problem with is the resolution that created the Parks and Rec Board. It is not, even though the resolution says advisory board, it is not an advisory board. There are administrative functions that are provided, that are specified, up to and including hiring a supervisor at Parks and Rec. And I don't see how that sort of a resolution can stand in terms of an advisory board. It may well be that down the road we'll want to reestablish this as an advisory board more in the framework of the Keep America Beautiful or the golf course, something like that. But to have this board exist with the powers that are granted under the current resolution is, I am very much opposed to that. And so I am going to make a motion tonight that that resolution be rescinded and that the Parks and Rec Board be dissolved. Later, we may want to reestablish it, but that's not part of my motion tonight. If I had a pen, I'd drop it, see if we could hear it.
I agree with what you said, Mr. Chairman, regarding the document that created that. It grants powers that I don't believe are appropriate and should be here in this board. I do feel we should have a Park and Rec advisory board that follows the guidelines we've been talking about, rather than a board with authority.
And we can certainly create that at any time. I don't want to mix the two. My preference would be just to rescind the resolution tonight, and then at any future meeting, we can have a new resolution to create a new Parks and Rec board.
Creative, even though it's not specifically on this agenda, that would really occur.
Yeah, that's going to be one of the problems, and that's the reason this was carried over from the last meeting. You know, it's it hadn't been advertised.
I think that's an important board to have.
And I wouldn't argue that at all. I just can't abide the particular makeup of it. Well, when I say makeup, I'm not talking about board members, I'm talking about
The resolution.
the resolution.
And it has strong language that I agree is not perfect. Well, this is difficult for me because I'm about to rotate off and I can't bring this back up. But I do feel, so I'm not going to second it for that reason, because I think it's important that board exists. And I can't bring that about.
I really will, I will support our chairman on this only because I think this takes us in the direction we want to go. And I understand the difficulty, Travis, of basically leaving a gap. And that's not good to ever do that necessarily. But until this is rescinded, it is not serving our purposes. It is not helping us. It is actually causing some problems. And I would definitely like to take this away and eliminate that. I would and I will make efforts and support what we need to replace it with. And I think our step with the other board discussion of the advisory board gets us along that way quite a ways. So it should not be difficulty to create the right board, advisory board for Park and Rec. I don't see any difficulties in that. So I'm going to second Charlie's motion on this because of that.
And I don't see any difficulties with it down the road. And of course, you're not rotating off, so you can bring it up
Yes.
at any time.
Yes.
And I'm not opposed to it. So when you bring it up, it's not going to be a big fight. We just need something that is truly advisory and does not have those administrative powers that the current resolution provides.
It is. If it did serve its purpose in its day, back in 2003 or wherever, fine. It is not serving the best interests of the county and the citizens today, so we need to do that.
Any further discussion? If not, all in favor? Aye. And with that, we are citizens wishing to speak. Anybody that would like to speak on any topic, except perhaps Brian, but he has no idea what I just said. Anyway, anybody that would like to speak? If not, can I get a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second that. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you folks, we appreciate it.